Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on enhancing data resiliency for enterprise businesses. My name's James, and I'm the backup product manager here at Synology UK. Now, I did just mention that there are this is a bit of a mini series in terms of the ActiveProtect range of solutions. Last time we were looking at cyber resiliency and how we can build up complex data protection strategies to offer us fast, visible and available backups, which actually when we expanded it further meant that we had a really good tiered strategy between different ActiveProtect solutions. So offering fast backup with verification, integrity checks, different restoration techniques, and then going through the backup and the data durability, so offering immutable backups, backup copies, and then also the physical system security with granular access. And but today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the management and maintenance aspects, so how we can build out clusters of ActiveProtect solutions and how we can easily manage and maintain that entire infrastructure. So I guess let's start with what actually goes into good resiliency when it comes to backup. Well, first and foremost, we of course need to make sure we have visibility on those backups. We know what's going on in those backups. We know when it's going on. We get all of the notifications out of it. But also we need to be able to have no single point of failure. So building out a complicated backup strategy. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's probably worth noting. But typically you do end up with some complex backup strategies offering no single points of failure. Now, where do we start this all off? Well, we need to start it with the protection plans that we're taking of our initial devices. So our PCs, our virtual machines, our file servers, all we need to do is look at the frequency, the policies, and the retention policies of these systems, and then also any additional factors we need to look at. So the immutable protections, the verification aspects that are also going to make sure we're making sure that we're happy with that the data being backed up properly. Now, this is what we covered in the last webinar. So if you want to go and have a look, please do once we finish this. But how do we help build resiliency in after that? Well, maybe what we've got is, maybe we've got an environment, an organization that's got a headquarters. For instance, we'll take London as that's the example I'm going to be running through today, where they've got actual backups that are happening on their central system in their head office. Now, this works really well, especially when they want to, when everyone's working on site. But what happens if a second location gets opened up, maybe a branch office in Milton Keynes? Well, with traditional active backup for business NAS, what you do is you'd have to manage each of these systems individually, which again is going to, it's going to double the management overheads of these systems. Now, what we can do with ActiveProtect is we can simplify that management structure by building in the management console, which is going to connect into every single one of our head office and branch office systems, and put all of those backups to be controlled in a single central console. So you don't need to go through every single system whenever you want to, whenever you need to do anything. How does that actually work in practice? Well, we've got a bit of a demo here. So here I've got my head office in London. And what I can do is I can go into the site management and we can select add a backup server to the site. Now, this is going to give us a connection key and also an IP address. So those are two things we'll have to keep an eye on. The IP address can be replaced by a fully qualified domain name. And then what we can do on the second system, we can select join a site instead. Again, we can put in those IP addresses. Here I'm actually using a site-to-site VPN, so I've got a local IP address to connect to, but you could also use those domain names as well. And I do recommend that for larger organizations. We can also put in our connection key, which means we're going to have our token to connect into the head system. And following through the wizard, we're just going to click join site. And this is now going to redirect all of that management console to the head office system. So once that's loaded up, what we can do is we can now start doing the backups on our destination site. So this is in our Milton Keynes office that we've just set up. So what we can do, we've got a file server running on a traditional NAS, so we can choose the Milton Keynes site, choose Synology NAS, and of course, because it's on the local network, we can just choose the IP address of our device in Milton Keynes, and we can put in the account and password details. So I'm also using sy.to password here, cheeky little plug for the sy.to portals. But once that's done, we can then choose the folders that we want to back up from that NAS, and then also choose the retention policy. So we'll just choose the default daily backup. That's all well and good. So this is now being backed up onto our ActiveProtect device. And once we click back up now, that'll take an initial backup as it sits today. And then every day, as our daily backup says, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we will do a backup of that system. Now, this is all very well and good, but I guess it's kind of worth just discussing how big a cluster we can actually scale to. Well, if those of you that did see last webinar, you'll already know this, but you can actually scale up to 2,500 sites and backup servers with over 150,000 endpoint or cloud accounts that need to be backed up. But it's not just that. We're talking about resiliency. How can we build resiliency? Well, that management console is currently being set up on a single node. But we can actually, when used in combination with a domain, allow failover of that management console to other systems within the ActiveProtect cluster. What does this mean? Well, it actually means that even if your entire primary site goes down where that management console lives, you can actually still maintain access and visibility of those backups, allowing you to still have control over the solution, whatever kind of state it is in. That's also one kind of aspect. But what happens if we then buy maybe another company to be part of our ever-growing corporation? Well, if they're using Active Backup for Business, we can actually also incorporate Active Backup for Business NAS into the ActiveProtect cluster as well. So we don't even need to kind of put in new infrastructure into that new location. We can just combine existing infrastructure into the ActiveProtect cluster as well. So this is kind of talked about some of the hardware resiliency and how we can kind of build protection strategies around that. What actually do we need to think about when we're talking about the data protection strategy? Well, of course, say it with me, we need a 3-2-1 backup. So of course, meaning that we need to have 3 copies of your data in at least 2 different medium, with at least one of those being held off-site. Well, how can we do that with ActiveProtect? Well, we can actually utilize the backup copy features that we have built in. So if I go into the protection plans, we can then choose our daily backup, which is the plan that we're using to do our backups at the moment. Under backup copy, we can enable backup copy, and we can choose the destination that we want to back this up to. So at the moment, we're taking a backup to our primary site in our head office in London. What we're choosing here is now to back up to the enterprise MK or the Milton Keynes device. And this means that we're going to do a backup at 9 o'clock onto our primary system, and then immediately do a replicant copy off to a Milton Keynes site. So we've got a full 3-2-1 backup solution. Now, again, those of you that saw the last kind of webinar will know this, but how do we take that one step further? How do we know we can guarantee on those backups? Well, actually, we need to look at the 1-0 additional bits of the 3-2-1-1-0 backup strategy. Now, 0 being 0 errors, so having verification, having data checksuming enabled on the devices, but the 1 being 1 copy held offline at all times. Now, this was achievable through Active Backup for Business in combination with power schedules. However, ActiveProtect brings this into the operating system that level further, allowing you to control not only the system shutdowns, but also the firewall and any kind of network control interface shutdown as well. So this allows us to have much more kind of fine control over what can access the system and when it can be accessed. Now, how do we actually go about this? Well, very simply, we go into our infrastructure, we go to our backup servers, we choose the backup server that we want to control, and we choose air gap. Now, at the bottom, we can scroll down and we can choose the isolation settings. If you've used Surveillance Station, this UI is going to be very similar to you. But you'll be able to just control when you want that system to be unavailable, and means that any ransomware attacks that get into the network can't find this device. And like that, it's just set up. So this means we've now got our primary site, our primary infrastructure that is backing up to our headquarters ActiveProtect device, which is then running a management console, allowing us to control all of our ActiveProtect devices. We're then replicating that copy off to our ActiveProtect device on a Milton Keynes site, giving us that physical separation, which we then also do a shutdown on, allowing us to make sure we have that full 3-2-1-1-0 backup strategy. Now, what we could do if we wanted to take this one step further is we could actually look to do cloud backups as well. So putting in another medium to hold our data on. And ActiveProtect both supports ActiveProtect Vault, so you can have a NAS, a Synology NAS in another location, or even the Synology sy.to object storage or Amazon S3 storage platforms as well. Now, it's worth mentioning that whilst we only support Amazon S3 at the moment, other S3 platforms and generic S3 platforms will be coming as a feature update in the very near future. The other thing that we also need to look at is actually the licensing, as there is a license with ActiveProtect. However, the license only kicks in when you have more than 4 nodes 4 or more nodes in a cluster. And so actually the entire solution that I've shown today actually can be built up license free, which maintains Synology at this lowest total cost of ownership in the backup industry. And so as we kind of round this all up, I know we've gone through a lot of things very, very quickly, but just to cover, we've got our backups that are happening quickly. We've got our 0 errors with our checksums and data integrity checks. We've then got our data durability and our management and maintenance being built in with the 3-2-1-1-0 and clustering platforms. And then, of course, to key in those kind of aspects of resiliency, we've made sure that our backups are visible, so we can see what's going on across our backup network wherever we are. And also, should anything happen to that management system, then that in console will fail over, so we can still have access to all of our backups and our data. And of course, having a full 3-2-1-1-0 backup strategy means that our data is not just sat on one system. We've always got at least one other copy available to us wherever we need it.